Today, the vast majority of the users of any kind of application you ever build are coming from a mobile device. So which type of app should you build? So let's explore each option you have for building a mobile app. The first option that probably comes to your mind is building a native iOS or Android app. Most commonly, two native apps, one for Android, one for iOS. That approach is excellent if you wanna do like stuff that rely very heavily on native functionality, like gyroscopes, anything with a lot of sensors. The more I think, and there's one functionality, unfortunately, that still requires you to build some kind of native app, which is push notifications, unfortunately, and only for iOS right now, because for Android, you don't need a native mobile app to send push notifications. But other than that, most functionality today will be available in a lot of the other options you have for building a mobile app. So let's go to option number 2, is to build what we call a hybrid mobile app. And that term is very complex, and it will appear also in option number 3, because option number 3 is also a hybrid approach, but a different one. So I don't want you to focus too much on the name hybrid, but most people call it hybrid. But the approach I'm talking about is using frameworks like React Native or Flutter, I'm gonna name both, to build one app that will run both on iOS and Android. Technically, it's two apps that share the same code, but you code once and you deploy in iOS and Android, almost the same experience, but you don't have to build the two from scratch. Both React Native and Flutter share, I would say, 95% of the code between the two, and you have 5% here and 5% here of different coding. That approach is very, very well developed today. You can build great. Actually, you can build apps where people won't know that you are using a hybrid approach for most cases. And option number 3 is a different kind of hybrid. It's the hybrid where you will build a native app, release it through the app stores, but most of the functionality will be running inside a web browser. That is, you don't know you're inside a web browser, but you are with this approach. So the browser will be running, it's called a WebView, will be running inside your app. You probably, if the developers do a good job, you probably don't know you're inside a browser, but you are. This approach is great for a lot of stuff, especially if you do what DHH from 37 Signals call the hybrid sweet spot, where you have most of the functionality coming from a web view, a web browser, inside your native app or hybrid app, but a few of the functionalities are native stuff. One example from Basecamp, from the article that we are going to link below, that's called the hybrid sweet spot. One example is they do content via the web browser, but navigation natively. So it feels like the menu, the main menu, etc., it's all native, and it feels real good to use the app. But to be honest, the article from DHH is from about 5 years ago, and in the past 5 years, I don't think navigation needs to be done natively anymore. We're doing a lot of stuff with web views where navigation works really well. Even animations and transitions, everything is good in the browser today. We are working on a project right now where all the navigation, transitions, animations are being done inside the WebView browser, and you don't know the difference. I bet you won't know the difference. Option number 4 is what we call PWA, a progressive web app. This technology was created by Google, I think. At least is brought forward by Google, and they are basically helping the world to bring the functionalities that used to be native only to the browser. And today we can build an app that can be installed without passing through an app store. You can use almost every native functionality like photos, accessing the gallery, push notifications in Android, not yet on iOS, I'll get to it in a second, location, everything you can imagine except for the most advanced stuff like gyroscope, which I think there's something on the browser, but I'm not sure. But the idea of progressive web apps, PWAs, is to allow you to build websites that become mobile apps. Not only mobile apps, but also desktop apps, because you can install your PWA on your Mac, for example. Apple has been very against PWAs over time, but they are announcing that in 2023, I hope, they will allow push notifications for PWAs on iOS. When they do that, I will say that 99% of mobile apps can be built with PWAs. And the thing about PWAs and web development in general is that it basically costs 3 times less than the hybrid approaches. I'm not even talking about pure native approaches. So it's much faster and much cheaper to build very good PWA than it is to build a native app or a hybrid app in terms of Flutter and React Native. Number 5 is, of course, just building a responsive web app. There's nothing bad about this. It's the traditional way we've built. I launched most of my startups before PWAs existed, and at least the more recent ones, they always worked on mobile phones from the browser. And you can do so much from inside a browser. There's no shame in building a responsive web app. I highly recommend it. I would just say that if you are targeting mobile users more than desktop users, maybe you can build a PWA, because the cost of building a PWA doesn't change that much from the cost of building a responsive web app. So those are the 5 approaches to building mobile apps. I hope you at least know now that you have 5 options, not just the one you had in mind.